Welcome back to another episode of Community Conversations with Alex and Dean. We are here today
Yes.
with Mina Alyeshmerni.
You got it right.
I got it right.
you
Wonderful,
did
wonderful. You are the curator, the store owner, you're a
Yes.
photographer of Maimoun, the wonderful store that we are currently in
Yes.
here in Los Angeles.
Beautiful store.
Yes, so beautiful. And we're so excited to be
Thanks
able to
for
speak
having
with
me.
you. No, it's our honor. It's our honor to
It
speak with
is,
you.
I
Yes.
appreciate it. And
Yeah.
same with you guys. It's a mutual honor here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Celebrate both of us.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. It's celebrating human stories, human conversations.
Yeah.
Celebrating ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, to an extent,
And all of you who are listening or watching,
Yeah.
we honor you and we celebrate you. And so today, we're going to talk about your story.
Yeah.
So we're going to invade your space. We're already in it.
You guys, I'm happy for you to invade my space. I've gotten the
Aw.
pleasure of meeting you guys over the past couple weeks,
Mhm.
and it's been wonderful getting to know both of you, and I
Aw.
appreciate it, and I'm excited for this
Oh,
conversation.
thank
So,
you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really love when we met you, when we came here. I love the energy in the space. I think you
Mhm.
have your aura. I think also kind of the
thank
space
you.
has that aura as well,
Yeah,
the peace
I agree. I
and
agree.
calmness.
Yeah,
and-
there's an energy in this
Yes.
space that it's
Yeah.
it's infectious, but it's warm and it feels
Yeah.
inviting.
yeah.
Exactly how. No, this is exactly what I would hope for people to say.
Yeah.
Aw.
And it was a real big reflection on just the environments that I had grown up in,
Mm.
creating the comforts, but also exploring the creativity. And and you guys have nailed it. So
Oh.
thank you.
Talking about the environment you grew up in, how was your upbringing?
Yeah.
How was it? Where were you born? Yeah.
So, about 36 years ago, I was born. I was born in Long Island. I'm a first generation Iranian American. So my parents, were born in Iran, in Shiraz, which is like it's known as the artistic, creative, poetic side of Iran. A lot more with nature
Yes,
and
yes.
beauty and the
Yeah.
outdoors.
Mm.
From what I've heard, I haven't visited yet, but so yeah, I grew up in Long Island, and then stayed there for quite a bit of time up until I left for college up north.
Yes.
So that was upstate in Syracuse.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, with my older brother and little sister,
Yeah.
and had a really wonderful upbringing in the suburbs where I was constantly introduced to just, a real secluded but lovely childhood.
Oh.
And I think
that's
that,
nice.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it really helped with like curating my or cementing my love for just like exploring things and being artistic and just different avenues over there. But yeah, it was I look back and I'm smiling right now because
I
it was,
know. I'm smiling
it
too.
was such a peaceful time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I find myself constantly reverting back to those moments of just like peace and having time to explore things and more, and also just really being a part of a community out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
It's
Absolutely.
really nice.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
again, I feel that translates. That comes through very strongly with
Yeah.
you. Because we're all in our 30s now.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
We
so
are. Start
disclosure, I just turned 30 a few
So
weeks
he
ago.
can
Yeah, so I can
proudly say,
I can say that
we're
now.
now in our
Yeah,
30s.
right.
Welcome. It's the best. Will be the best decade.
Oh yeah,
It
I'm loving it.
is.
I'm
Yeah,
loving it so
I'm
far.
enjoying it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It is.
100%.
But I'm
Yeah.
so like as we get a little bit older, I find myself kind of grasping certain things that I experienced as a child. A lot of peace and a lot of spirituality that I experienced as a child, I feel like I moved away from that in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I feel like now as I get a little bit older, into my 30s, it's kind of coming back to me
Yeah.
in so many different unexpected ways, like in the art that we create, in these conversations that we have. And it's a natural thing, or at least it feels more natural to me than it did 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you were probably more of a like artistic child. You spent more time like just exploring like the abstract things in life. Am I right about that? Because I feel like I sort of...
It is correct. I
Yeah.
mean, my mother moved out to Long Island, and she had 3 children, and it's a lot. And my father he's a doctor, and he had a full-time job and plus.
Yeah.
And thank God we had a neighbor close by who I look back on till this day, and I really could say she and my mother informed a lot of my artistic and creative side, but she would always be working on these projects, and like it was very, everything she did was with her hands and to keep her daughter busy, because her daughter was close in age to us, our neighbor's daughter. She would constantly think of like different projects and art projects that she could do, and they would invite us over constantly. So I have I think that really cultivated a lot of my interest in, painting, drawing, beadwork, and every time we'd come over to her house, she'd have something new she was working on that she was adding to her home, or I don't know. It was just, it really kind of allowed me to explore a lot. And I don't think I had thought about that until more recently this year, looking back on different things. Where certain, interests of mine have come from.
Definitely.
That's very true. That's very true. When we're kids, every experience really inspires us, and what we become later, it kind of, the good or the bad.
It's really, really
every little thing kind of makes, as who we are.
Yeah, for sure.
And as you're speaking about that, you mentioned that being a doctor and you're a child of an immigrant, so you're first generation. So a lot of children of immigrants, they either become, the parents want you to become a lawyer, to become a doctor, because they know the challenges when they left home, and so they are like, we want you to be good. We want you to know you have this salary, whatever.
They want stability for
yes.
the kids.
Yes.
Of course,
100%.
like what parent leaving a country that was in the midst of breaking down and during a revolution, all they want is for their family to have stability, and for their kids to have stability. It really does inform a lot of that first generation.
Yes.
Kind of like the guilt and the weight that we have to carry as children. First generation to want to, feel like your parents came here not just in vain, but like to really make something of yourself.
Yes. Was that a conversation for you to be?
Oh my gosh, growing up with my father, it was a constant conversation, and it was tough because I was always trying to, I think I always wanted to make them proud, and I really but at the same time, I think I was struggling with a huge love of the arts and culture, and as you're growing up, you only tend to figure that out more, right? You only become closer to it.
You lean into it.
Yeah, exactly. So I felt like there was a constant struggle of me wanting to lean into it, and then also me having to pull away and being like, no, this is not, who knows what this could lead to. It's not really a path. You're constantly being told you need something more stable. I mean, I remember when I was applying for colleges, and I really wanted to apply to like these art schools, specifically for fashion design, and we had a conversation with my father, and he was like, I think, you should do liberal arts and, business at least, consider that. And my mom would kind of like call me over to her side of the bedroom and be like, apply apply where you want.
Oh, I love
it.
You know, we'll see what happens, but just put your application in.
Oh, sweet.
And that, you know, the encouragement from her really, the support from that also, it was really helpful with getting me to, I think, where I am today.
Yeah, to do what you love.
Feeling less guilty about it.
Yeah, right,
know?
right.
Like, that it's freeing in some sort of way to be able to explore it. And I mean, it's at this point, obviously, they're like, we get it, we see what you've done, we're so proud of you.
We see the vision.
But like
at the beginning,
it's hard for them to imagine that. But I think they're also coming from Shiraz, the more artistic, creative side of Iran.
Yes.
Exactly. So my dad, even though he's a doctor, he has a huge love for music. He has a huge love for art. He was always picking up and putting down instruments. He would paint with us when we were younger. So I think that in that same regard, you know, he understood
there's a possibility
the attraction
for you.
of art in my life.
He
also had felt the same way.
That's nice. That's really nice. To have a supportive family. And that understanding, patient. Because that journey towards where you are now, that's not easy. So you definitely need support, emotional support.
You do. I think every creative person needs to hear, you know, like, you're doing it. And you're making it happen,
you're on the right path.
And you know, keep pursuing it. You know, if it's, you know, obviously making them happy and they are showing, you know, that they can bring something new to the table.
Absolutely.
Like, I think everyone needs to feel that encouragement. And I think,
for sure.
I think that's where, especially when you're younger, because you can.
It's easy to get stuff beat out of you as a kid, or it only takes a few discouraging words sometimes to be like, oh, maybe I should reevaluate my life choices. And I know we all go through that as creatives, especially when you have parents who mean well but have a very pragmatic way of going about things. But that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing that you had that support early on, and then that's very ingrained in your upbringing.
It is. And so when you had when you knew, you know, you go to school for arts, you went to school for business, and
so I went to school for like retail management. It's literally what I'm doing. So that was my dad being like, well, let's do liberal arts, let's be more pragmatic. And then after that is when I went to FIT. I did evenings and weekends while I was working a full-time job at the time. And that was my mom coming in and being like, pursue the arts. But also I will say that was the 2008 economic crisis. And I had just graduated from college, and I was like, I'm not getting a job anytime soon. Like, I'm going to go straight back to school.
Let's go back to school,
And, you know, finally got to pursue something that I really was so in love with. And that, to me, you know, it really really kind of opened a lot of doors in terms of, you know, how do you imagine your life on your own terms? Which is something that I really hadn't afforded myself, I think, previously.
There's also a certain amount of bravery in that as well. Because I mean, I was not to like date ourselves, but I was.
We did.
We did. I guess I was a freshman in high school. 2008. During that financial crisis. You were not here, Nadim, but it was tricky because I remember my parents having those conversations.
2008.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was.
I was still in high school.
Yeah, and I remember them. I remember. But I remember the uncertainty around it. And so, like, for you making the decisions, being like, well, okay. I mean, I just can imagine you graduating college into that market of like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and then just making the decision just to persevere, right?
I mean, it's just kind of like, I think in moments where things just completely break down or combust or just hit a disequilibrium, we kind of have those moments to decide, well, the path is blown up
Yeah.
completely. What's thought to have happened or what's thought to be ahead of me.
Yeah.
So I might as well just create a path forward that is
you might
on
as
my
well.
terms, because what do you have to lose then?
Yeah,
at that
right.
point,
Exactly.
I'm sure maybe that was the same story for you as well, in terms of
Yeah.
like figuring out what's next or doing something.
Well, I definitely remember conversations about focusing in on like what I wanted to do. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess kind of every high school
Yeah.
kid has that conversation with
Yeah.
their parents eventually,
Yeah.
but it was like because it has like a trickle down effect. It's
Yeah.
like they were like, okay, we got to focus in. I'm like, okay, maybe I should focus in. So I
Yeah.
was doing a bunch of different stuff like band and basketball and
Yeah.
this and that, but it did kind of narrow my focus on, and it maybe gave me a bit more of a work ethic
Yeah.
to fight for the things that I wanted.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it had an effect for sure.
It's during those quiet times where we can kind of like, I feel, move inwards and just kind of create the plan.
Not everyone is able to get here where you are.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, there's a saying, I think was Maya Angelou, who said that they don't die with your music still playing in you.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people have dreams. They have, these big ideas, but they never come to life.
Yeah.
And so it's always, I think, inspiring to be able to hear stories of the journey, how, people got to the point where they can actually put their music out there, their talents out there. And so that's what
the origin story.
Did you always dream of having your own line, your own store, your own, brand?
Yeah.
Growing up and having all these, talents and the creativity that was inside you and going to school for it.
Yeah.
Did you always dream about having your own space?
No.
Oh.
No, I did not. This again, it goes back to the guilt of not being sure I should be pursuing something in the arts, let alone having something that was my own, was a whole other like thing I hadn't even thought about, because again, it goes back to stability, right? And what's more unstable sometimes than going off on your own, starting your own business, and then it also being in the arts. It was definitely not something I afforded myself to.
Did you just feel like it was impossible, or it was just?
For one thing, I didn't think that I was the type to be in charge, manage something. And I didn't imagine that was
you
ever
have
my
it in you.
personality. And I think that was based off of people that I had worked with previously that had more of that mentality or had that confidence. And I didn't think that was me.
But
I think,
maybe the way they made you feel.
But I think that's just not being exposed to enough people in leadership that we're doing things differently. And maybe not, especially within fashion, the dialogue between employer and employee was a lot tougher and a lot, more
like hierarchical in ways.
Exactly. It was very much like that. And it just wasn't empathetic enough. And I think that I'm not of that nature where I can just separate the two. If you're in my orbit, especially daily, it's way more of a family than anything else.
Than it is.
So I think that for me, with the job where I was working remote, or had a lot more time on my hands, and had a steady income coming in with that position, I slowly started to think about other things. I think it afforded me to think about other things. And, well, if money is not something that I have to worry about, then how can I fill that space in terms of like really going after what I want? And it kind of started off with like one simple Word document where it was like titled store.doc. It was on my desktop. And I would just open that file, and I was just like, if I could dream of what a store would be, because at the time I was working a lot within retail spaces. So my mind started moving in that direction. I was like, if I can just dream of what this store would be, what it would look like, what the packaging would look like, what the vendors would be, what anything that I would do differently, how I would communicate to customers, you know, what would that be? And they were all thoughts that I would just get down onto the store document. And I would add to it almost every single day, edit things, delete things, you know, add pictures, inspiration. And it came to a point where there was nothing left to add there. And I was just like, well, that's done.
it.
I mean, I guess I have like the
I have a store. I have the whole business plan.
I have like the dream of what I envisioned. But I have, there's nothing left to dream about. It's all now do or don't. And I think that having that document to just bounce things off of, maybe I'm better at like writing things down to see things come to life, but it created the space for me then to be like less guilty, or like maybe less or maybe more just enthusiastic and more comfortable with putting myself or envisioning myself in a certain role, or
it was tangible then, because you could see it on your document. Everything is okay, this is doable, this
things
is possible.
were less of a question mark. I think that really helped.
That is a good idea.
I mean, I encourage everyone to I'm not a journaler. I don't journal.
You find your way. You find your own way.
I think it helps to like have ideas and thoughts written down to make them feel less of a, you know, less of a dream.
A floating thing.
Make it more real, less of a question mark.
Exactly. Less of a question mark.
That's a big thing, because like a lot of these things are very conceptual. I mean, of course, to start out, you're just like, well, okay, this is my idea. Like, this is what I would want to maybe happen. But then, like you said, like, I guess journaling is one way that a lot of people sort of figure that out. But you do find your way in making these things real. And I love what you said about, well, I'm going to paraphrase because I've already forgotten exactly what you said, but it was about like being in like a managerial position. Because for me, the same way, a lot of the managers that I had growing up, you know, doing these retail jobs, I think they kind of stemmed from like my like sports background and like coaching. It's like, well, the coach is like this, like
there's a lot of
there's the person to listen to, and you're like one step below. And it's like and so it was hard for me to make that emotional connection with people who in my vision, like, these are the managers, these are the people in charge. And I didn't feel like I could be in that space as well. You know? And so it's not until sometimes when you see that thing, or just a different flavor of what that actually looks like, or what that can mean to you, then you can start to like use your imagination, see it realize itself for yourself. And it's like, okay, so this is a totally different thing than I originally envisioned. And so it's really interesting how that works out for each, you know, each person individually.
Each person,
I mean, everyone thinks that there's a specific role to be played and how you play that role, and I mean, it doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't have to be.
We don't have to have that Devil Wears Prada.
No.
Workplace mentality.
Definitely
not. You know?
It actually messes it up and actually makes people not care about their work.
No, and it's also like, I think that this conversation is, I mean, I think that the topic of quietly quitting is a real thing. Like, people get, if it's not there at the top, people disengage. Employees disengage, and you know, you might not know you've lost them, but
they're mentally gone.
And you know, I've been there in a few situations in my past work experience where it's just like, I know this is not what I want for myself. And you have to.
Alex and I worked. We met. We met at a job.
Oh, you did?
Yes, we used to work together. It was not a retail, but kind of had that retail feeling. I had never worked in retail before. Had you worked in retail?
Those all
So in Rwanda, it's not a thing for like high school kids to work. So you don't really start working until you finish school. So I never had the experience of the part-time jobs and things like
Yeah.
that. So it was the first time I had experience or have a manager.
Yeah.
And I remember we checked out. Mentally you check out.
You do.
You don't care.
No.
Now a relationship with that place is just a paycheck.
Yeah, it really
But-
could be sometimes.
But at the beginning, it was not.
Yeah.
So something must have happened
Yeah.
that made people feel like detached. Then now they're looking at it. I was like, every end of the 2 weeks, I'm gonna get my paycheck, and that's
Right.
the only relationship.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's not healthy either for the person who's working or for the person they're working for, because then it gets toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets,
And, you know, you're just spinning your wheels into your next gig, and they're spinning their wheels until
they find the next person.
exactly. And
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's
Yeah.
time is precious.
Yeah, and I was gonna say,
Yeah.
like, you
Time is
waste a lot of
precious.
time.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
You should be actively always working towards
Yeah.
something that you believe in and a purpose
Yes.
for yourself that you believe in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. So that's how
Yeah.
the podcasting started. Because
Yeah.
we were like, oh, well, this is not going to last. We
Oh
need
my
to find something that
gosh.
we love.
I love that.
And so we
Yeah.
started podcasting when we're not at work.
Mhm.
And the work that
was your happy place.
oh yes,
Yeah,
you will
like-
be. I think it's like almost like the way you were writing down
Yeah.
every time you were like, okay, what's missing, the store, and you just had that document. I think it was almost the same way where it's fulfilling you. So that void that you have at that job that you don't like, at least you have something that's
Yes,
keeping
yeah.
your
Yeah,
spirit.
It's
lit.
keeping, yeah, exactly. And I was gonna say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's like it wasn't
Yes.
even that it was it brought anything monetarily back, and it
No.
was just the act of creating, and just the
Yes.
act, like you said, keeping that
Yeah.
music alive, and
Yes,
staying in
yes.
touch with like
Yes.
your source, whatever it is
Yeah.
that keeps your
Yeah.
wheels turning every single day.
Absolutely.
And it's like it's daily practice to
Yeah.
and it is practice. It is practice
Yeah.
to go after what you want.
It is.
Because it's hard to
You
just
have
wake
to-
up after 4 years of being dormant and then be like, well, I want to chase my dream today.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, it
Yeah,
also
it's
takes
hard.
yeah,
no,
it takes practice.
takes-
and-
It's like, yeah, it's the moments where you really have some time to yourself to figure out what it is that you really want.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
You know, not to waste the time to go after it
Yep.
because, you know, you can get caught up in many things, but
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah, it's
absolutely.
easy to keep pushing off or not pursue it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
you have
For
to
sure.
think about your future self, right?
You have
Yes,
to.
you have to. Yes.
Hard to have that foresight when you're young, but
It's hard,
yeah.
Absolutely. So how Maimoun was born? I understand the document kind of helped out.
Yes. Yeah, no, of course. Well, just to kind of get to the root of it,
Yes.
Maimoun actually comes from the Persian language word meaning Mehmoon, or how you say it is Mehmoon in Farsi.
Yeah.
And what that is having guests or company over to your home for an event or a social
Oh,
gathering,
yes.
or a milestone.
Mm.
Yes.
But it's about hospitality and inviting someone into your space, you know?
Oh, yes.
So, a lot of that, you know, growing up, a lot of that for me was my parents having this evening that they would call Shabasher, and what that translates to specifically in Farsi is night of song.
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah, so a night of song.
Shabishah.
Shabasher.
Shabishah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. A night of song.
Night of
That's
song.
beautiful.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
every year my parents would host kind of like this big event at our home where they would invite over musicians, artists, poets. I mean, it was
Beautiful.
looking back on it now, it was really incredible, and I find that it was a way for them to bring their community close to them after
Oh,
leaving Iran.
yes.
Yeah.
Because it was a big crowd of people. I mean, it wasn't like people they might have known directly. It was a way to bring people into the fold, introduce people with one another,
Yes.
Persians living in the community,
Yes.
and to celebrate art first
Oh.
and foremost.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And
Yes.
and they would host it. We'd have microphones, they'd have chairs, auditorium style, and it was a real
Aw.
it was a real event.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. That's
Yes.
And of course we had food, like,
Yes.
you know, all the Persian food, all the beautiful
Yes.
stews and you know, everything,
Yeah.
desserts and all of that. But those nights where I think, and when I got older is when I really appreciated it. But it really informed what I wanted to do with the store in terms of inviting people into a space where they're in someone's home. And I'm a huge voyeur. Like when you invite me into your space, I want to look around.
You want to go
wanna
everywhere.
know-
Oh.
Yeah.
I want to know like how you live.
Yeah,
I want to
yeah.
see the art on your walls. And, like, you know, I love it. I think again, it goes back to the human story and what objects and things, garments, whatever it might be, say about a person.
Yep.
So I've always been interested in how the two connect. Which is
also
also why I had a brief stint in costume styling for films. But again, the human story and how that all relates is just so interesting to me. So the store, I really wanted to have it as a space where the customer is coming in and they're adding things that they find rare and precious into their own human story or into their own world.
Yeah.
But also kind of like take a peek at our world and it having more of a kind of like warm feeling towards the vendors that we were carrying, what their story is and how they produce things and telling their stories as well, but also really spotlighting some talent that didn't have another outlet at that time or really had something to say through their art and through their work. So that's really what I think for me, and until this day, I'm still so interested in, you know, sharing that story. And
I can see a big smile whenever you're like, you know, just sharing it. Your journey. It's like so warm.
And like, you know, of course, not having a physical space when we first started this, you know, 8 years ago, and the store came along this past year. It finally feels like, okay, we have a home, and now it just feels like, and that's where
you
know,
can
the
actually
cushions come in, the rug, the table, as if it was a dinner setting, and you know, just kind of creating a more comfortable dialogue between the people that come in and what we're offering, and knowing, you know, how to share these stories with the customers, especially.
So when we came here for the event, right? Baserange Maimoun crossover event. And one thing that
store takeover.
Takeover.
But it was really a special thing because, you know, I was recording a lot of the times, and I got to see like very candid, sort of natural connections, human connections happening, and I was like, it is astounding how comfortable, how quickly people can become comfortable in a shared space. And I was like, this is actually like a magical thing. You know, people were just kind of like lounging, just laying on the ground, just naturally talking. People who you maybe have just met, right? And I think back to like many, you know, I'm not to name names, but so many different retail spaces that it is very much just like 100 of the same sort of garments or clothing. You just like, you pick one, go to the cash register, buy it, and then leave. It's very transactional relationship with the store. And I guess that's one way of going about life, and it works for many people. But just being able to experience the connection again. It's something that I feel like is missing in many different spaces, not just retail spaces, of course, but. It was surprising. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it was like
I like that.
I was like, this could be
more of this.
We need more of that. It's just the question is how do you cultivate that? And so as you're talking about the effect that you want to have, opening this space, and it's only been open for how many months again?
Oh gosh, opens early May.
Early
April,
May, and
so
what? And what I was able to feel, right? it was astounding.
Oh,
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
absolutely. And thinking of
That's all I could hope for, really. We can end this interview now.
I know, we should.
God.
This is all we want.
Yeah, that's all I needed to hear.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that's what I think, I guess that's how you choose your vendors, because
Yeah.
there's a connection between your the culture within Maimoun. I was gonna try to say it in
Farsi, Maimoun.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
funny.
There we go.
Yeah,
You got it.
and Baserange,
Yeah.
which is one of your vendors.
Yeah.
And the culture is the same. The humans come first.
Yeah.
The people come first. The peace. Just thinking of a humanity and understanding that the pieces are for people.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just not forgetting that, like, you know, and so seeing that you choose Baserange as one of your vendors.
Right.
Do you choose every vendor? When you choose them, do you have that in the back of your mind? You're like, they're like me. This is what I'm, so how do you...
The commonality.
Yeah, the commonality is how do you select?
Well, first and foremost, I like to include partners in my life that I have like mutual respect for, and there's a good energy between the both of us, because I just don't like communicating with people that can come off a certain way or not feel encouraging or inviting or excited. And so but for the most part, I really love finding designers who are either working by hand or creating things in such a small capacity, and specifically, artists who are using techniques that, might not be in existence because they take too much time, or it's not the most practical thing. And that does amount to the price tag that we see on certain pieces, but it's more so about, honoring art and honoring pieces that live past a season and a year. And, each of these pieces, I can really say, I feel like they're in your closet for decades.
Oh, yeah.
And
For sure.
hopefully being passed down
generations.
to, as future objects of desire, and, heirloom pieces and things like that. But I really do look through it. Of course, there is a business standpoint in all of these vendors that are brought on board. We have to make sure the margin is there, and can they recut styles if we need them to, and things like that. But every vendor offers something a little bit different, and the relationship that I have with each vendor is a different story in terms of honoring their work and getting their work across the across the wavelengths, either online or in person, to the end user, or and just being able to honor what it is they do, because it's all quite unique, and it's beautiful being able to, and it's completely my honor to be able to share their work with others as well. And especially Baserange, like
thank you
guys, you guys really do a wonderful job at getting past the fashion climate of seasonal wear. It's more of like a lifestyle that you guys have built, and that's really what I try to do with my store. And the way that you guys engage with your audience is unique. It's not conventional, I'd say, by any standard of what happens within this industry. For me, part of it is, of course, you make really wonderful pieces that work so well, and I love wearing them. But a lot of it is also like the story that you guys are telling, and how you make your goods, and the partners that you work with in the field. And again, that has a lot to do with a lot of the vendors that I bring on board as well. So Yeah.
Well, I mean, like you said, I mean, there are stories everywhere, and I think that the sharing, it's sharing, it's sharing different cultures across the entire world.
Right. Yeah.
And so, you know, with Baserange and with Maimoun and plenty of other people who love to share stories and share parts of themselves, it's meant to stay in your life, and it's meant to change or positively impact who you are as a person.
Right.
And so if that's what we can do on a daily basis, is share who we are and try our best to better ourselves and make this world a better place. Um, environmentally, that's what I'm trying to find. And spiritually, well, then that's what we're supposed to do. Right. And so it's an incredible thing being able to share space with people. Like right now, I'm just kind of taking a moment. Just I wish we could do this more often.
Yeah.
You know, it's a special thing for sure.
Right. And honestly, it's like my favorite part about Market Week. People talk a lot about Fashion Week, but Market Week is like, that's where you're having those conversations with one-on-one with the designers.
Those connections.
And, you know, you're checking in with them and how they're doing and what their inspiration was for that season and how they're making things now. And they're showing you pieces up close and what they were inspired by. And it's like, these are the moments that really brought me here, that really influenced why I wanted to get into this. And, you know, having that feel of community,
definitely.
going to their studios and just seeing, you know, how things are created and made. And, you know, it's incredible. It really is. And I really love
I know.
that I do it.
I know you love what you do too. Like it's really nice to see someone talking about what they do, and just see a smile on their face every time they're speaking about it, because not everyone has that luxury. Let's call it luxury.
No.
And I don't take that for granted at any, you know, moment. I really don't. So it's a lot of pinch me moments, and especially like, you know, talking earlier about like how I wasn't sure if I could do this or if I was a leader or if I could even pursue something in the arts. I look back on that and I really do feel like everything had to work out for this to happen in the right way.
Yeah, that was gonna take me to my next question, actually. When you look back on your young self, when you had that document and all the things you were going through as you were, you know, the unknown things that were ahead of you. And now from this point now, looking at her, what would you want to tell her?
Keep working on that document.
Keep at it, girl. Keep at it.
Like, I would tell her to, you know, don't think that this is all just about you dreaming. This is about you creating something that a whole community can share. And at the time, I think I also was thinking more so about me and what this meant for me and like how I can move forward in it. And of course, when you're starting something out, that is what it's very insular. It's, you know, your own little cocoon at the time. But it's more so about uplifting other people's art and their work and their words, and being able to share that with a wider range of people. And that is something that came from all this that I didn't even factor in at the time. So I would definitely
this document is your magic wand.
It is. And I think it's also just like I think it could help you know, a lot of people figure out what they want. And
absolutely.
And putting things down on paper, I really do think that it helps clear up your mind. Think about, make space for other things.
Definitely.
Do you still do that? Do you still have that, you know, do the documenting things? Do you still have that?
You know, at this point in time, if I'm documenting things or writing things down, it's a to-do list. It's a to-do list, but it's there is a portion of that to-do list. It's a very categorized to-do list. So there's a portion of this to-do list that is all about dreaming and all about future projects and all about things I want to do and pursue. So yeah, I would say in some way
Yeah.
it continues to inform what I
Yes.
do and how I plan things,
Yes.
and sometimes also like sometimes you can't, express into words and things just happen to you, but you have to just be open to it and go with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So of course there's that as well. That happened with the store
Yeah.
actually. So, just being awake,
Yes.
really,
Yeah.
Yes.
and
Yes.
open to things,
Absolutely.
but feeling the confidence that you have the power to make things tangible and happen.
Yeah.
And
Yes. Yes.
it's
Yeah.
pretty incredible what
It
you can be
is.
capable of when you feel passionate about something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's really about our customers who support us throughout all these years and
Yes.
engaging with them. And, again, that goes back to me being a voyeur. Like, I love
Yeah.
getting to know who our customer is and,
Yes.
what
Yeah.
they're looking for and why
Yeah.
they're here, but also to encourage them to think about making, supporting a business that goes beyond just,
just
putting products
putting the
out, and,
Yeah.
product
you know,
out. Yeah.
and how what they're doing and what they're up to and what art they're pursuing. But it's great. We have the best conversations in here with our
Yeah.
customers, and it's been
I
a
bet.
blessing to have that.
I bet. Well, you've
Yeah.
created the space to be able to do that, though.
Exactly.
And people just,
Yeah.
and people can
That's really what we
sense
wanted.
when like they're open to speak.
Yeah.
They're open to have these sort of deeper, more fun human
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah.
It really lends to like, and you can feel it in the walls. Like
Yeah.
the bones kind
I
of feel
know.
like.
Yeah.
they're
That's
new
like
bones,
that's what I'm
but
trying to
they're
create.
Good,
Here.
I like
It's like
it.
yeah,
Cozy.
yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
That's what that's how I grew up. So that's what I want for this place and
Absolutely.
the future of this place.
Yeah. I know
Well,
you give
it'll
us
happen.
a lot of great messages throughout the conversation.
Mhm.
But is there anything you would like to leave with our listeners?
Yes,
Who people are listening who may be starting a business, or just women who don't, who have no confidence, like don't know that they can actually, realize their dreams.
Yeah.
Like, what would you like to tell them as like a closing,
Absolutely. I think that it kind of touched upon something that we were saying to one another earlier in this conversation, but I would say like lean into yourself in any capacity of what that might be, and not to discount your differences or not to discount your shortcomings. You can hire for your shortcomings. You can collaborate for your shortcomings.
Yeah.
But lean into what you're happy doing and what you're passionate about.
Yes.
And collaborate with others.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would say
Absolutely.
that is, what I've been able to do. And and it
Yeah.
gives you the strength to figure out what you want.
I love that. I love that. You can hire for your shortcomings. You can
Listen,
hire.
you can
You
hire
can collaborate for your
people that
shortcomings.
get it and will do it right. And you can
Yes.
focus on
Yes.
little off your plate, and you can focus on what you need to do. And this is especially why school is so great, or building a community if you're not going to school, around what you're doing and, DMing people and reaching out. Do you want to work on this project? And it's a mutual collaboration, and they're both getting something in the end, but
Absolutely.
you're also working towards a common goal and figuring things out and discovering. And I will say the beginning of creating this business, and I think a lot of people feel this way, is it was the best time of their lives, right? Like you were figuring things out. Wild, wild west. You can throw things up at the wall, see what's stuck, and then move on, or just like power through, or look at it and kind of move it around and reshape things. But it's a precious time, and it's a amazing time to get to explore and not feel like you have A, B, and C to do, and just have fun.
Yeah. And
So,
fun, right? And you have fun.
fun.
That's also an incredibly important component as well.
Absolutely.
We all have to have fun.
You have to.
Absolutely.
You have to keep
Right
it going.
now, especially.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
and
this was
thank
wonderful.
you guys.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Baserange community.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. I'm so honored and happy to have been able to have this dialogue with you guys. So thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thank you.
Of
Thank you
course.
so much for creating this space.
Absolutely.
Yes.